So now we will be starting with the last session of the day, and it will be on research, the next generation. And I would like to invite Professor Chandrasekhar Ramanathan for taking over. The next panel, I would like to introduce our panelists. So on first of the panel, we have Dr. Manohar K. He heads the Innovation Cell at Center for Innovation in Diagnostics India at Siemens Healthineers. In this role, he leads a multidisciplinary team with competencies in molecular diagnostics, computational optics, and data sciences to address unmet needs in diagnostics. Manohar began his career at Siemens in 2011 at the Corporate Research and Technology, where he led programs in affordable healthcare and applied biosciences. Before joining Siemens, he worked at Life Technologies and GE Research. He holds a DSc from Washington University at St. Louis, a master's degree from IIT Bombay, and a bachelor's from VJITI Mumbai. Please. Next on the panel, we have Dr. Akisman Majumdar. He is the principal scientist at Emphasis Next Labs. At Emphasis, he leads a team of data scientists building solutions in the machine learning space. He regularly consults Fortune 500 clients on AI/ML and quantum implementations. He has launched multiple patented as well as patent-pending solutions, including products for ML ops, automated code generation, AI-based process optimization, and customer 360 analytics. He did his PhD in quantitative methods and information systems from the Indian Institute of Management, IIIT-Bangalore. Please, sir, I welcome on your stage. Our third panelist for this session is Mr. Surya Mansuri. He is a silicon architect working on Oryx microcontrollers at Infineon Technologies. Before Infineon, Mr. Surya worked for Apple Incorporated, Cupertino, USA, where he was responsible for hardware power management features of iPhone. Prior to Apple, he worked at Intel Corporation on developing IPs such as voltage regulators, PLLs, clock control units, random number generators, and security units. Over the years at both Intel and Apple, he has worked on several topics related to clock power, high-speed IOs such as PCI SATA, and audio subsystems for PC, server, ultramobile, and smartphone platforms. Please, sir, I welcome you on stage. Our last panelist for this session is Mr. Raghu Prasad Shantaram, who is the head of strategy and microelectronics at the Continental Technical Centers, India. An impactful leader with 20 years of automotive and embedded industry experience in establishing transformational, collaborative, and thought leadership. He has been associated with organizations Bosch, GE, Aptiv, and Safran. Lead various portfolios in the technological areas of automotive electrical vehicles, ICE powertrain, domain controllers, system on chips, instrumentation clusters, instituted volume-to-value transformation for ER&D centers. He advocates for the benefits of latest technological innovations within the automotive sector, both in SW and HW. He is an alumni from the Indian Institute of Management, Bangalore. Sir, welcome you on stage. I would like to hand over to Professor Ramanathan. Thank you.
Good afternoon, panelists, and good evening, should I say. And thank you so much for taking your precious Saturday afternoon off to visit IIIT-Bangalore. It's indeed a pleasure to have you here as part of the Emphasis IIIT Rise 2023 event. And so today, this is essentially the culmination of the open day activity here. And so the main agenda for this panel when this was discussed, right, as you can understand, so this specifically is a research-focused event of IIIT-Bangalore. And we thought it is in the fitness of the things, the way to top it all up is by giving an insight into the R&D activities of the corporates and how they work, and give a peek into the corporate world, the industry, and especially for the benefit of our research students. Many of them are waiting in the wings, if I may say, and so that they get to understand, because all of them would have spent all the time as part of doing academic research. So if we can just, the whole idea is to give a glimpse of what's happening in the corporate. So to begin with, if I may request all of you to please tell us about the nature of the work that has happening, and more specifically, what is the role of R&D. So if we can start with how Continental views the R&D aspect of it. What is it that happens there, and what is the role of R&D within the organization, please?
Okay. First of all, thank you, Professor. Good evening, everyone. Continental, it is 152nd year of Continental.
Wow.
Okay. We started in 1871 as a rubber manufacturer. So if you look at Continental, we are split into 3 divisions. One is mainly on Conti tires, all of you will know. And second is Continental Technologies. And last one is the automotive. Yeah. Bangalore Tech Center, India, it's one of the biggest R&D hubs of Continental. So we are closely around 5,300 people. So we mainly work on topics like autonomous mobility and safety and motion, which includes like your braking systems, your stability control systems, your airbags, and smart mobility. In the smart mobility, more towards connected cars, cloud ecosystem, and commercial vehicles, basically there. And coming on to the architecture and networking, the vehicle dynamics and way, if you look at the future, there are a lot of vehicle computers are coming in. I will touch upon it in later. So we develop high performance computers, so which are vehicle computers, which are need of the hour as on today. And the last one is more on the user interface. We call it as infotainment earlier. If you get into the car, your clusters, infotainment and all, we work on that. And we have a software central technologies, which is horizontal, which caters to all of this. So with software central technologies, we take care of AI, ML, data analytics, you are designing the algorithms, all future related topics. If you see, overall automotive is moving towards autonomous, connected, and electrified. I will add one more term there. It's becoming more personalized.
I see. Wonderful.
Yeah. So with this, we say at Continental India, we are doing a lot of research work, which catering to global products. And we are the leaders of Asia Pacific. India leads the Asia Pacific in research. And for India, we are developing cost-effective solutions. So with our motto of software on the wheels, that's how the automotive is changing as on today. We are leading from front here.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much. Dr. Surya.
Thanks a lot for inviting me to this panel discussion today. It's my privilege to be here. So since I'm representing Infineon here specifically, so Infineon is a global semiconductor provider, and it has 4 major divisions. The first division is automotive, where Infineon provides the microcontroller, basically the chips, the semiconductors for Continental as well as other, tier 1s and the OEMs as well. The other division, apart from automotive, is connectivity. So both wired and wireless connectivity. So here there are a wide range of solutions for Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, 5G, and so on. The third division is on IPC, industrial and power control. So here it goes on all the way to MOSFETs, to gallium nitride, different devices, different device physics, and so on. But it's for the higher end of the voltage scale, basically high power applications. So industrial power control, that's the third one. And then the fourth one is on power and power connectivity. This is basically USB based, all the solutions there. So if you look at it, all the four of these divisions are represented from an R&D point of view in India, in Bangalore. Apart from Bangalore, there is a testing facility and also sales organization in Pune. Mm-hmm. And it's over the last few years, we have grown tremendously in terms of R&D. Okay, because as you can imagine, all these areas are right now very hot. So from a research point of view, we do a lot of R&D here. More R&D depends on which division here, but we partner with a lot of universities, including IIIT-B. Yes. Okay, so this is something that we are very proud of, and we would always want to connect to the universities, especially on what is coming on into the future. Right. So that one, and this is the same concept we have been using in Germany, where the headquarters is in Munich. So there has been a close collaboration between universities in Germany and a couple of universities in India, where we are also partner of. So we connected across the globe because the main theme that I would like to bring in is either for IoT or for automotive or for connected secure solutions. The world is changing very fast. Okay. We are getting into new standardization, and we would like to basically influence that in several ways. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you. Dr. Chishma.
Sure. So thank you, Professor Chandra, for inviting me, and good evening to all the panelists. So I'm from Mphasis, right? So Mphasis is one of the IT service companies here, right? And like all other IT service firms, we actually work for a number of our clients. And mostly for Mphasis, the clients are in the banking sector, right? So that's a little bit about Mphasis. We are about 30,000 people, and a huge bulk is in India. I'm from NextLabs. So NextLabs is the applied R&D unit of Mphasis. Now what we essentially do at NextLabs is do a lot of applied R&D. Essentially, we try to look around the corner for our clients. So what's coming up in banking in the next couple of years, or what's coming up in logistics in the next couple of years. And towards that end, there are a couple of activities that we do. The first is we build a lot of IP-driven solutions. So these could be solutions around, code generation, like we mentioned. It could be MLOps. It could be extraction of data from, unstructured documents, right? So there could be a lot of solutions that we build. Then we also deliver a few projects, right, which are very cutting edge. For example, for a Canadian firm, we are currently doing a project on quantum, right? So some of these very cool cutting edge technologies also we get to work on. We work with academic institutions, very proud to be, associated with IIIT-B and, with all of this. So that's another very important aspect of what we do. So 3 key activities.
Thanks a lot. Dr. Manohar.
So thank you for the opportunity and also for patiently listening to us and to me. My name is Manohar. I am part of Siemens Healthineers. Siemens Healthineers, as many of you know, is a medtech company. It has...
Sorry to interrupt, but I think that specific word actually caught my attention. Maybe we should repeat that. So we call this division as Healthineers, like engineers. That's the first time I was hearing.
Yeah, that's the official name of the company, not coined by me.
But still, that was interesting.
So that's the global company that I'm part of. India is a key R&D location for Siemens Healthineers. There are many groups within the R&D location. I had a group called Center for Innovation in Diagnostics, and primarily the mandate of the group is to look into what would be the product base for Siemens Healthineers 4, 5, 10 years down the line. So what it means is we really need to study the technology trends, understand how clinical decisioning is shaping up over the years, and be ready with ideas, show feasibility for these ideas, and future product profiles for the company. Within the group here in Bangalore, we have competencies in molecular diagnostics. So anything to do with DNA, genomics, and things of that sort, because many of these early indications of health are predominantly genomic in nature, and how do we really cater to that? We also work in the area of computational optics, which is an intelligent play of sensors, algorithms, as well as the physics in mind. And we also work in the area of data sciences. How do we really ensure that all the data coming from our instruments, from clinical knowledge, can really be employed in the clinical space effectively? We realize we may not have the best ideas at times, so we work extensively with academic universities here in India, non-governmental organizations, university, as well as startups. So that's in a brief what we do.
Wonderful. Thank you. Can you turn on the monitor speakers, please? So that's wonderful. So because one thing what I realized is even based on my little bit of a time I spent in the industry, I think this is a trend that we saw nearly 15, 20 years ago, that all the multinational companies as well, right? So all of them have realized the importance of embedding R&D into the organization right here in India, where there's so much of talent and so much of work that's happening. So it is very heartening to see that that thing is even becoming more stronger. So the next question I have is, all said and done, there's something called as a research culture, which is unique to different companies, unique to different cultures and different organizational goals and mandates and things like that. So, for the benefit of our students, would you give some glimpse into the research culture in your organizations? Specifically, you can highlight on what drives the areas of research, right? In fact, if you remember, the initial title that was given for this panel was the next big thing, right? So maybe that is very much driven by the research culture of the organization itself, right? Because do you want to look 10 years into the future, or do you say that, okay, these are the most critical problems that my customers are facing today, so how do I solve it? So just give us a glimpse of how do you drive research? What are the factors? So maybe we can start with Mr. Raghu and we'll go in the same order. Thank you.
Very good question, Professor. I will start from my department. I head strategy for India. So what is strategy? Strategy is something where you, in the industry, you are a leader in next 10 years. Okay, you think ahead. You need to be the leader of the industry, not only now, in next 10 years. So to being a leader of future, what you need is you need the changes in the technologies, right? There are technologies which will change. It is changing every day in a decade. If you foresee the technological changes, it will be massive. So it's all about for the industries, companies, R&Ds for like us, how do you adapt to the changes? So what is this adaptation to the changes? Adaptation to the changes is nothing but innovation. Yeah. And where does this innovation start? It starts with researchers.
Right.
Okay. So I connect strategy directly to the research. So if you need to lead in next 10 years, you need to invest on the research today. And if you see in our organization only, there are quite a number of research fields. We have our own innovation COE, where we do research in-house, and then we have tie-up with academia, universities, where we do joint researches. And if you asked how do you manage the present? I think there was a question about how do you manage the present and the future. I will go back to Professor Govindarajan, his three-box theory.
Okay.
I think we have to manage the present with operational excellence, bringing those excellences, optimizations, and we need to selectively forget the past. Okay. Yeah. And we need to invest on creating the future. Any organization cannot escape these three boxes. It's all well set. Coming back to us, Continental, the next big thing, we are heavily investing on autonomous mobility. If you go one level deep dive on autonomous mobility, it's all about sensing, planning, and acting. Yeah. In the sensing, we have various sensors like radars, lidars, cameras, GPS, which will sense your environment around your vehicle. And coming back to planning, in the planning, we have two stages. One is more on perceptions, like how do you look at static object, dynamic object, how do you look at the route maps. Coming on to modeling, like how do you do a behavioral modeling, how do you do a trajectory modeling. If you look at all these fields, all are research. There is no, as on today, there is no 100% accuracy is achieved.
Right.
We can even go for thousands and lakhs of researchers, the papers, to achieve that accuracy. Yeah, this is one on autonomous mobility. Coming to the connected cars, that's the next buzzword. I was going through some of the future studies, like 2050. We are in the world around 9 billion people, and we'll be having close to 2 to 2.5 billion cars.
Okay.
And these 2 to 2.5 billion cars, majority of them are either partially automated or fully automated, and they are connected.
Okay.
They are like each car has its own brain, the computer, and it is connected to internet. If you look at this, where are these processing powers will come into?
Right.
So I will look at my partner so that we bring in that SoCs, system on chips, chiplets, bring in that AI accelerators, video accelerators, system on modules, which is an area we are also working in Continental to upbring that processing power. That's where the high performance computers will come into picture. And who will look at the security area of it? Cyber security.
Right.
For all students sitting here, researchers, these are the areas which you can look at. And we are looking at close to 2.5 billion cars, which are coming by 2050. It's another 27 years to go, but
Yes.
lot of work
I know.
yet
We'll
to
leave all the
happen.
problems to them, and then we will retire. Anyway.
So that's what I look at. Research is a core wing of an R&D center, and equal amount of investment has to go to the research.
Yeah.
And what and all the money we are making, revenues, profitability we are making, we have to invest on the research.
Yes.
Otherwise, we cannot survive for next 100 years. I mean, any other company.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. That was very insightful. Thanks. Dr. Surya?
Yeah, I echo with all your comments here. But since the professor has asked for more of a motivation to the students, right? I mean, I will tell you my personal journey, not necessarily related to the Infineon journey itself, but so I have 2 masters and a PhD. So you can imagine now I have done it twice and now continually doing it also. So I can speak at least on what I have seen as a trend over the last 2 decades, 20 years. So for my first master's, identifying the problem was itself a master's thesis itself. Okay. I won't go into what technical topics it was. It was in US, University of Illinois. For the second master's, I was at MIT. Just getting the professor's time was hard. Okay. I think some of the students will echo with that comment. But the main thing when I understood after when I was working on my doctoral work is some of the things are also by design. In the academic field and the academic setting in the university, your main goal should be to look at the blank slate, go from the first principles, either math or physics, you build on top of that. If it's on information technology, you start with the math, really from the first principles, challenge that. And sometimes, if you're lucky, you may find some, a gold mine there. So that allows, a nurturing of your mind. More importantly, what you would want to get out of that is the process in which you want to do research. Okay. What problem I think we discussed, I think we can tell you 20 different problems, sure. But the mindset of how you want to do. 20 years back, there was no Google, could not easily find all this information. Now there is ChatGPT, which can synthesize information for you. So we are in a different world. But the process in which you have this independent thinking to synthesize information and identify itself is a huge learning from a research program. Right. I know I have talked to some of the professors here at IIIT-B. I know they, just by talking to them, what the students would be, also be encouraged to do something like that. So please keep that going. Now that's more on the generic stuff. So specific, like what was mentioned from Continental, to specifics to the industry right now, what I see is that the time to market, if you have assume, okay, now any one of you in the room has taken this first principles approach, you figured out that there is this new algorithm or a new material or a new solution somewhere or a potential solution somewhere. The cycle to market, or what we call as the time to market, from the ideation till when it is available in your hands or in businesses' hands is the most important thing. So there are two things. One is your research mindset, identifying the problem and what is the method in which do you do. The other one is how fast you can hit the market. At Infineon, we really are trying to do both. And especially on the later part, where how we can, we have a lot of ideas inside. Working with universities, as I said, globally as well. But how can we, deploy them in spaces, either in autonomous driving, connected security, IoT, take a field. That in itself is also a challenge. So my suggestion to all the students and the participants in the research program is to take this as a learning, and it is a journey, and it will only accelerate. As I said, we are living in very interesting times.
Thank you. Thank you.
That was very insightful.
So, Dr. Achishman, I think, being an IT service provider, probably you have probably the biggest challenge in balancing between the delivery pressures versus, being a part of the next lab itself, right? So you're looking into the future. So how do you strike that balance, and how do you even set the agenda for next labs?
Yeah, that is a very challenging question, right? Yes. So we keep dealing with this on a daily basis. See, one of the key things that we want to keep is the research DNA, right? For all the people who are joining. So we do look at new areas, but at the same time, it has to be very customer centric, right? So like the time to market has to be very short. We are building prototypes. Good thing we did was we had a lot of a few of the IIIT master students in the early days, right, about 8 years ago, and they formed a very important culture of this delivery versus research mindset, which is let's just go and do it, right? So whatever comes out in the market, they just go and build a prototype very quickly, and then that is something we can showcase to the clients, right? So that gives a very unique positioning for an organization like Next Labs, which is that we would work on the latest and greatest, and we'll be able to show and tell that, this is how it is working. Then comes the delivery aspect, because that doesn't, mean anything, because people will, like in the previous panel we were saying, right? We'd come, we would show, and it's a great presentation, it's great, and go back. So in a typical B2B scenario, there would be a 4 months kind of lead period before it gets converted to delivery. One thing we do is also train our delivery partners. So we do a lot of internal training. These very folks go ahead, do a lot of classes, so that we also try to demarcate to an extent that, if it's something very recent, like, you're doing GANs 5 years ago, 2 years ago, whatever, you have a project on that, we would deliver from Next Labs. If it's a quantum project now, right, we will deliver from here. If it's something on large language models, GPT, something like that, we will deliver from Next Labs. So you go ahead and you finish that, 9 months. If it's something that can be trained, we have a separate, delivery wing. where we would do the handover, but at the same time we would ensure that there is continuity and there is no disconnect, throwing over the wall kind of scenarios.
So basically, it's all about showing your clients that you are ready for the next.
Correct,
right?
correct. And for that, nothing beats than building a quick application.
Right.
It may not be scaling to 1,000 people immediately,
Right.
but you can at least go and show that this is how it works. This is how it will go ahead and work. So
Thank you. Dr. Manohar, so probably Siemens has got a very large global footprint in terms of the the R&D that must be happening at different labs and so on. So one is the balancing of the delivery versus the R&D itself. But here, when you have some kind of a global vision from an R&D perspective, how do you localize it from a regional perspective? Are there regional dimensions that are brought into the way research agenda is set? Just give us some insight on just how does R&D happen in your Healthineers organization.
Sure. Thank you. Yeah. So you're right. Siemens is a big company. There are many business units, each catering to different product lines, from computed tomography to diagnostics and so on. And each of them have their own R&D teams. Many of them are focused around sustaining their own current products. The mandate for groups like mine is primarily to see what else is shaping up healthcare delivery. So what does that mean? You really need to understand how healthcare is transforming, how it is being consumed, what are the unmet needs, what are the challenges which prevent people from accessing healthcare or even staying healthy. So the first and foremost thing is really to understand the clinical challenges. And then to really see, can we have a solution for it? Sometimes the solution can be a technology solution, technology innovation. As a group, we don't do basic research. Most of the research that we do is applied in nature. Mm-hmm. That means in NASA TRL levels, we are looking at upwards of TRL 4 and higher. So the ability to identify a technology, see if it's the right one for a idea that we currently have, demonstrate initial feasibility like he just mentioned, keep in mind the value proposition that it would bring to a customer. By customer, I mean not just a paying customer, but also to a patient. And would somebody pay for this? So the previous talk was all about it. So what is the business value it creates for somebody who would like to bring it in addition to the clinical value? These are considerations that one needs to have. And in terms of the research culture, what you just mentioned, it means that you really need to kind of think out of the box. I know it's a cliche, but you really need to really identify what are the unmet needs. Sometimes it is new. You'll have to reinvent yourself. The degrees that we got trained for may not really be relevant today. That means you have to unlearn certain things. The unlearning is more difficult than the learning part. Absorb things, observe, ask questions. We routinely talk to many key opinion leaders, clinical practitioners to really understand how it is changing, because we don't know all the time. So a certain amount of humility to say that we don't know and accept that we don't know and keep on chugging. There are both good days and bad days. Sometimes the bad days can extend over long spells. So the research culture would also mean you need to hang on there, have resilience, have the fortitude to plod on. And when you realize it's not working, and sometimes it seems all working for you, but the business is not ready to take it up, not making it a product, let go of it in the hope that it will come again later on. So these are the aspects that forms our research culture. It's not always a great day every day, but we need to have the persistence and the fortitude to carry it through. And more importantly, be motivated by why are we even doing this in the first place. Sometimes it always helps to go back. And the reason why we exist in the group here in India, and you spoke about global footprint, is primarily because we think we can do good science in India. By science, I mean a very generic way, engineering too. And all the ideas that we work upon are ideas come up by the team here. Nobody globally tells us do this or do that. And that's how we have sustained ourselves and contributed to the company.
Wonderful. For our e-health research center researchers, any glimpse into the big next thing that might come out from whatever in the healthcare space?
No, I think pretty much everything out there is well known, from how data can be collected from wearables to data that you currently carry around in your smartphones. I don't think I can offer anything new. What I think is the challenging proposition is many of these data sources, how do you really combine them to give you clinical grade information? Because at the end of the day, we are committing to somebody to make a clinical decision, which will probably decide the course of treatment, maybe also the outcomes. So we can't take it lightly.
Okay.
So all I would say is the next big thing is probably happening in universities and small research groups, startups. But the key thing is, how do you really synthesize all what is already out there and create innovative products? He worked in Apple, and I think no better example than the Apple company as innovation versus invention. So I'm not saying we have something new invented. Of course, we do that, but more about innovation, what's already out there.
In fact, I think that's very interesting. After listening to all four of you, I just before this morning, before lunch, we had a whole bunch of students, college students, fourth year and third year students who were here. And I was just asking around, right? So what is it? So they're saying, I'm studying computer science, I am in ECE and things like that. So I gave only a 15-minute GAN saying that, right? So this separation between software, hardware, everything is completely shattered. In fact, that's what I was saying. The reason why we are not called as International Institute of Computer Science, right? Because we are about technology. It's all about technology, and that is here for us to see. Thank you so much. So the final question is slightly open-ended, and probably which is where I want your opinion as well. Maybe a little bit of a needling is what you can say. Where do you think is the research best done? Should it be done in the industry, or should it be done in academia? Let me give some context to that, because one of the challenges as a country that we are trying to still figure out as an academician or as an academia is to build a very strong models for industry academia collaborations, right? It is, I would admit that it is not as mature as it is, say, in Europe or even US, for example, right? So we are still, I'm really grateful that industry has very readily come forward to collaborate with IIIT-Bangalore. We are collaborating with each one of you who are in the panel. Very, very grateful for that. But I would imagine you will also agree that as a country, we are still trying to figure out how to balance between, IP versus, I don't know. So where do you think is the best place to do research? Again, we'll go in the same order, if you don't mind.
Again, very good question, Professor. Say research, if you see, it can happen linear way, non-linear research, exponential research.
Okay.
I will try to put it in these three quadrants. So if you see linear research, industries, we have our boundaries, our own products. We'd like to make them better. We know our market segments. Okay, this is more of a linear research. And non-linear research needs a lot of freedom. It's more of freedom to act. I would say non-linear research, it's more suited for academia, where you don't have much of the boundaries. The scope is very, very wide. The problem statements also very wide.
Okay, so if I can just request you to take it further. So in your areas, right?
Yeah.
Can you give examples? What do you consider as linear and what do you consider as non-linear, which is more suitable for academia?
See, we have our own products.
Okay.
If I take autonomous mobility, the radar, lidar,
Okay.
cameras,
Okay.
they have attained some level of maturity now,
Okay.
as on today, and there is a research going on.
Okay.
Because this sensorics will further continue. It will continue for next 20 years. and we will make our products better. But how do you handle the information coming from this sensor X? It's a white spot.
Right.
As on today,
Okay.
if you see the behavioral models,
Okay.
how do I understand what is the trajectory I'm going if I'm driving an autonomous car? I'm talking about fully autonomous car.
Right.
So it's a very, very open-ended area. A lot of white spots are there.
Okay.
There, non-linear, what do you call, innovation can come in, can take away everything.
Understood.
Like, if I give an example out of this boundary, ChatGPT is a non-linear thing, which came in, just taken away.
Sure.
It can grow exponentially.
Okay.
Tesla is a great example for non-linear innovation. Okay.
Right.
Everybody were building cars, including big threes, GM, Chrysler, Ford. But Tesla has taken away the market.
But that didn't come from the university, did it?
No.
So I'm just trying to
Maybe,
understand. Yeah.
Maybe just to, sorry, Professor, just to answer the question completely. Especially in India, I think universities, you have freedom to act,
Wonderful.
work on these things, but you also need some supporting system,
Right.
some funds to do the research, look into the complex research,
Okay.
where you need to set up your own innovation labs.
Right.
I think that's where the industry and academia collaboration will help.
Wonderful.
How to pitch in these non-linear things,
Okay.
how to grow them exponentially.
Yes.
If I take an example of Germany, in Germany, a lot of new car makers are coming out of universities. Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's a best example I can
Great.
give.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
You had another question, sorry.
No, I think that's essentially what I wanted to ask. Thank you so much. So same thing, right? So how do you balance, and if you can be very, very specific, you can give some ideas to our researchers as well on what areas, for example, in the semiconductor area, for example, which is where you are from. So
I think it's a very tricky but tough, good question. What I would say is something related to sciences, maths, and basic sciences. Absolutely no choice. The universities have to do fundamental research. There's no question on it. Not that companies don't, but I think some of the foundational things, new crypto algorithm, the next version of SHA or whatever it is, right? I mean, mathematical proofs, new materials, discovery of new materials, new compounds, and so on and so forth.
Right.
So we can go on to the pure science,
Okay.
maybe science applications. I think universities have a lot to contribute. Okay. And now then we come into the ecosystem on how the industry can direct that and fund that appropriate research. The government can as well, but the industry is also now increasingly in India, as you said, becoming a partner, whereas in Munich or Germany or US, you would see a lot more tighter collaboration there. So a lot more funds go through to do this, basic research, because that's also very effective in the sense that not every thesis may work out. You can, risk-wise, it is, a lot manageable. You can do different things here at the university setup. And I think, as was mentioned earlier, it is wider. Definitely the industry would have to work on the research and development topics to take in these ideas and also in some cases develop their own ideas to make the products much better. Some of the topics, I think, like earlier, Infineon was also Siemens company like 20 years back. So maybe the same DNA flows through. So some of the topics are very similar, irrespective of it's the biology or semiconductors. What we see is that, let's say if I take the latest GaN device, how I can optimize that for an industrial power control circuitry is a know-how right now shared across both industry and academia. So from the industry perspective, we also need to do much better in working with the universities to not only attract the talent, that is obviously happens, but also to give that precise problem statement, as you're asking exactly what is this, maybe, do that. And then, maybe that leads to more specific outcomes. right? So that's my take. But Infineon, from a global context, we are trying to do that. We have programs to do specific problem statement, output. So if anybody here is interested, we can connect.
Wonderful.
We can connect and give you, maybe the third level deeper. This is the area. Okay, cybersecurity. We can say this is our problem statement. Yeah.
That's wonderful. Thank you.
Maybe I'll talk about a little bit about a personal experience long back. Right, I was in a different research lab. And, initially fresh out of PhD, got a paper in a very good conference. And I did not get the grant to go to that conference in the industry, right? And that was a shocker, right? Where why would you not do this? So this question is actually a very important question to realize that there would probably always be, different kinds of research which would be carried out in industry and academia. We are coming together, and it's a great thing that we are coming together. But like you mentioned, right, there is a lot of fundamental research, even in this area which goes on in the in the academic world. And on top of this, the other thing that, especially what we are collaborating on, are there's a lot of work that you can do which is for the good of the society, right? Mm-hmm. And we often have, at the end of the day, there are margin pressures, there are, pressures in terms of funding, so on and so forth, within the industry, where you would probably not be able to look at those areas. Livelihood, education, inclusivity. There are a whole host of areas that we have collaborated on.
Yes.
And those are research that we do feel can be carried out in addition to the fundamental research,
sure,
like the algorithms,
yes,
which can be carried out better in an academic setting.
Wonderful.
In the industry setting, it is more about how do you apply this.
Understood.
There is this overlap now, as you mentioned, GPT-3 and whole host, number of papers if you see in that area, sure, which are from the industry. They're also very different dynamic industries out there. So that's
Thank you. Dr. Manoj, any thoughts?
Yeah, I think the presenter has already covered many of the points. From my perspective, it's each of these, academia and industry, have their own advantages in terms of facilitating research. Like you mentioned, some of the basic research is best done in academia, where you really want to explore that area, understand to its fullest potential, be unencumbered with any of the constraints that may be there from a business point of view, and really show the potential across multiple areas. Academia is probably much better. Industry really values research coming from academia. Industry also values the people who do research in academia. And we would like to hire them, because when you have to grapple with a problem, struggle with it, try to make sense, be with it for a period of time, you develop a certain attitude to problem solving, competence building, which is extremely valuable in addition to the output of the research.
True.
So both the individual and the output of the research is equally valuable as it comes from academia. And industry is primarily looking at the translational aspect of that particular research into something which somebody can make use of. It can create profit so that the business can be sustained.
Absolutely. And
overall, from a societal point of view, create value. So each of its academia, industry have their own specific ones. Which is best is all left to the individual, where they feel that they would want to contribute and be part of.
Wonderful. So in fact, it's very interesting that you use the word translatable research. In fact, that is essentially the current thought process even behind the IIIT-B's, the way we would like to approach the R&D elements of the society. Because one of the other things that I do mention is that while we can work on the research hardware plus software kind of a perspective, so we said that any of that work, it has to be in some context, right? And we believe that context can come from the applications and from the real problems that the industry is trying to solve. So I think all of us have successfully dodged that particular question, where should research be done? And I think the consensus is that there is a place for research in both the places. I think that's been really wonderful and great insight into some of the activities that are going behind the scenes, because especially we don't get visibility. Maybe we can throw open the floor for a few questions from our research students, if there are anything for the panelists, and then we can wrap it up. Thank you. So if you can just stand up and quickly introduce yourself and then ask the question, please.
Yeah. So I am Avi Tomar and I am a MS student, final year, and I work in theoretical computer science. So my question is, we try to solve theoretical problem that don't have direct implication in the industry. So how do we maybe approach for funding, like when we are doing that kind of work that may have impact maybe after 20 years. So let's say we are trying to solve P is equal to NP conjecture. So for that, industry won't fund that. That's a very ambitious things to ask. So what your take on that? For fundamental research, industry, how do they fund actually? When you don't have direct implication of the research, immediately.
I think it's a very good question. I see that there is a difference in the way the Western countries approach this exact problem, right, to how India is approaching. And here's where I will be very frank, right? We have to learn a lot. We have to set up very good endowments in Indian universities to be able to do this fundamental research in a more holistic way, not be encumbered by this grant applying, these kinds of things. And there is a National Science Foundation, other systems set up. I think here in India, what I heard is the Niti Aayog and the central government is also trying to do something, a program similar where you can go for and apply. I think from the industry point of view also, I think a lot of companies, especially in the semiconductor space, are thinking about, forming a consortium where they could, apply for grants, or the academia can apply for grants and on wide-ranging topics. So that is one way to do it. But it's a work in progress. I will not say it is solved right now, but we should, like you as a student, we coming from the industry have to look at the models around the world that have been successful as a systemic point of view to address this problem. Not maybe specifically to your problem, but holistically. But I mean, since it's computer science specific, I am sure you'll not have much problem in, for that exact problem that you're trying to work on, there'll be so many other companies interested. I'm more worried about more esoteric topics that may not be, immediately.
In fact, just to add, if I'm not wrong, there is a prize out there if you can prove equal.
Yeah.
So one other approach could be that you take your specific problem and you look at which are the companies which might be interested in this, right? So you can take a very narrow approach to this. Are there specific fundings out there? And then approach this. That there could be grants in India and other places as well.
Thank you.
And just to add to what he just mentioned, and if I can,
Please.
Yes, industries like Siemens would be interested in partnering on really long-term topics.
Very nice.
And he mentioned grant opportunities. He mentioned endowment. So this could be something where I see a lot of industry academia partnerships.
Yes.
In applying for those grants so that the learning can be jointly shared.
Yes.
That's number one. Number two is you can also look at something that you think would take about, let's say, 20 years to see the light of day. You can also see what can you harvest along the line. And maybe those are areas that industry would be interested in. And it not only gives you some proof points along the way that you are going in the right direction in terms of having utility towards a problem, which industry also needs and maybe even society needs, but also kind of could help you sustain your own journey over the 20 years.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Sanjay from third year mechanical engineering. I have a couple of years experience in a US-based medtech startup, and I'm a national biker too, under 18. So my question is, I have a couple of years experience in this medtech startup, but my final goal, end goal is to do something big in automotive industry. So yeah, I'm a very research-oriented person. I don't know where to start, where to take pivot from this medical startup and way to enter into automotive field. what I'm thinking is, my question is how to take pivot, like my career change. I got this opportunity as a designer in startup, this medtech startup. So my end goal is to be in automotive field. So I don't know where to start, where to get in, how to do research in automotive field.
It depends on which topic you want to do the research. Yeah. You told you are a biker, right? Yeah. There are a lot of research happening in two-wheeler segments. Okay. You can take a topic which is close to your heart. Yeah. We are talking about autonomous mobility. Maybe I can give you some hints. Can you fix radars to your two-wheelers? Does it help bringing on safety? Yes, absolutely. How do you go about it? Your vehicle dynamics of a two-wheeler and a four-wheeler is completely different, right? How do you bring in stability for the two-wheelers? That can be a research field. Choose a product rather and look into the problem in that product. I think more we have to look at transformational research which can be transformed into a product. That's where you have to eye it. Both medical field as well as automotive field has n number of problems to be solved. What passionates you? Look into that area.
Thank you.
I would say, since you're a mechanical engineer, focus on industrial design as well. I mean, I think you know what I'm talking about. And apply that principles in some form factor, like you mentioned, either for a bike or, whichever is the form factor that you would like to. That in itself is like a huge learning for you, and you may also get a good outcomes out of that. And I think nowadays, most of the students here, sir, will have access to CAD tools and everything, I think, on the cloud or, so you will have enough tooling available, at least, from a CAD perspective. But yeah, I think my suggestion would be focus on industrial and then bridge it into automotive.
Yeah, I just add to what points already came. Since you already have a medtech industry experience, you said, and you have some interest, follow that area. What happens? Look at some conferences which are happening. Understand the themes of these conferences. Talk to people there may be many associations. You could meet people over there. Understand what are the trends which are driving their own businesses. And that could identify some problems for you, which you think, okay, it's worth looking into from a research point of view. And then you see which are the universities which focus in this area, which makes sense for you to apply and even be part of. Not a very straightforward solution, but you have to explore. And I think you probably have the attitude to explore, so keep exploring.
Hello, myself Apurva Kulkarni. I'm a PhD research scholar in data engineering domain. My question is very generic. Like after completing BTech or MTech, when a student join industry, there is a specific training which he has to go, or she has to go through to gel with the culture of a company. But as a researcher or after PhD or when we are trying to join a R&D, we would be very few students who are joining in that particular year or maybe a particular batch. So is there any particular training that you really give a research scholar or a PhD candidate to gel in the research environment? Because after spending 5 years in a research institute, we are very much, we have our own opinion and a way of doing research. So gelling with the industry research, it was just I'm curious to know that.
I'll take this question because it's very close to my heart. Even after a lot of years of experience after a PhD, when I joined Infineon, I still had to go through Induction Academy. Okay, that's a good thing. I think a lot of companies now also realize this. It's not just also for a PhD researchers, but also for several masters, people coming from different, experiences. This cultural training and also how to go through the process, right? And how industry looks at their KPIs is completely different than your grading system in a college,
Yes.
right? So those things are very important. Right. So a lot of companies that I'm sure in this panel and also beyond have realized this problem, and there is this. If they're not already offering to you, it may be online due to this corona and all these things. So this material is there. You don't need to be worried. I think this was a concern maybe 25 years back, but now a lot of companies have addressed
because
that.
I think that's probably relevant in the context of what we talked last, right?
Yeah,
So how do we, industry, academia, right, the way we were, I think.
But not a startup. Yeah, startup, you won't get any induction academy. It's jumping into the ocean directly. But in a MNC, even Indian companies and stuff, they have a formal program called different things.
Okay.
That's taken care. But I will say the problem statement there is exactly what you said. How you're gauged in academia versus how you're gauged in industry is completely different. So you have to reorient yourself to act differently.
Yeah, and probably the other point that I can mention is find a mentor. That could be the game changer, right? Because that's what I did when I decided to join the industry. I figured out who from my institute, where are they working, what are they doing, and I started, contacting them. I started asking about their experiences. That really helped. Again, like we are talking long time ago, so there are a lot more material available right now. But I'm sure that is one strategy that would definitely come.
Yeah, again, don't fret, like you mentioned, it will happen. Companies have the formal induction program telling about nature of company, blah, blah, and so on. Many of them have, like you mentioned, assign a mentor, which can help you get settled in the initial few months. And over a period of time, you'll figure out your way. I think you need to take to heart that you have the ability to plod along, solve a problem, come up with, say, answer, work with a certain set of circumstances, which probably the constraints are different in an academic and it may be different in industry, but that's the nature of the problem. But I think the training that you undergo, the good days and the bad days, which you will do when you're a PhD, that should be good enough to do any job in industry. So I would not really worry too much about it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay,
so much.
thank you. I think we are just about out of time. So I would like to once again extend a very, very heartfelt thanks to all the panelists for taking a Saturday off and trying to spend time with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.